All right, time to do the deep level magic in this 59-ish Vibrolux. I say 59-ish because the transformers don't have the precise date codes that later Fenders do. They seem to be in line with 59. I have not checked the pot codes yet. If I had the whole cabinet, which would have the tube chart, I would know when it shipped from the factory. These filter caps have a date code of 1992. They go away. These bypass caps have a date of 2000. They go away. Is it 2000 or 2002? 2002. So they're 20 years old, and the filter caps were 30 years old. So it is time. And I got all the old solder out of those joints, at which point I discovered, and this is crucial, that this ground wire going to chassis was just resting beneath this eyelet, and solder was touching it, and it was working, but who knows for how long. This one, again, was touching on top. Wasn't coming up from the bottom with the J-hook the way it ought to have. And then this one over here, again, was just sandwiched between the boards. Solder was touching it, so it was working, but there was no mechanical strength. So what I'm going to do is replace these lengths of wire, which are soldered directly to the chassis, with new ones, which actually pass through the board and hook around the terminal. So there'll be a mechanical support for each of them before any solder is applied, and those wires will not break off again in the future. Now, the reason this happens is because these wires going to the chassis are actually the old leads from the original filter caps. And so someone went in there to change filter caps out, and they snipped them right here at the eyelet, and then they soldered the new caps in place, and they just got pushed down, and they were just kind of sort of there. So I'm going to be heating up the big iron, and I guess I'll show you on this one because there are fewer wires around to see it. Let's see if I can get a better view for you. All right, while the big iron heats up, I like to get in here and remove some of the old flux around the solder. I'm not scratching the surface of the chassis. It doesn't take a lot of pressure to break up the old flux. All right, then when I remove the old wire, I'll remove the old solder as well and clean this spot up. And I want to have a fresh spot to add fresh solder and a new piece of wire. And I'll probably use 20 gauge for that. It's, 22 is fine as far as the current. There's not a lot of current. It's a short path, but 20 is just mechanically a good bit stronger than 22. And there's no need for 18, as well as you'd be hard pressed to get all the leads in these eyelets if you use 18 gauge. So I think 20 will be the sensible choice there. And I'm going to pause this because I'm going to do all this prep work, and then I'm going to remove all the old solder from all the spots without burning the wires in the other spots. Then I'll show this once I pick back up in this area. The principle is the thing, not every little iteration of the principle. It turns out it's much easier to do this if I pulled the pots, which gave me a good excuse to clean everything. So here I've got new 20 gauge bus wire making a J hook. You can see on this one and this one better. The angle hides this one through the eyelet. And later I'll trim off that excess once it's all back in place. But for right now, I want to, actually I need to put the screws that hold the board back in place first so everything will line up. And then I'll solder them to the new bits of solder on the chassis. And all will be rock solid. Let me do that real fast. All right, that is much better. So we've got very solid chassis solder joints. A little bit of slack in the bus wire, not too much, just enough that if the board shifts, nothing gets pulled on. And each has a good mechanical connection at the eyelet where ground is made. with just enough excess that it won't pull down through the eyelet if work is done in the future. So while I've got the big iron hot, I need to go in here and touch up some grounds here. I'm not sure why there's a bit of duct tape in here. I guess someone had that to hold it in place while the solder set up. I don't like keeping things with residue in there. And whoever made the ground for the AC safety cable sure exposed a lot of steel. It only takes, when I go in there, I do a crosshatch just with a harder metal screwdriver, just a crosshatch both directions in the area where I want the solder to be. And that way I get a nice even pool as opposed to this spread out and this stuff. And that way any plating that I remove from the steel of the chassis is covered by solder. So once I get all this done right, I'll give this exposed steel, I probably should go get some beeswax or something, but I'll probably just use some clear nail polish. It will keep it from rusting in that spot. Solder doesn't rust, steel will. So that's one of the reasons I just do a small crosshatch only in the area that's going to be covered by solder. But I'm going to clean this stuff up real fast. Well, once you have that much surface area that's been soldered to, it's really hard to do the nice domed things because you don't have any surface tension to work with. It all wants to spread out. But and so this is not as lovely as I would normally want it to be. But that one there looks a lot better than it did. And I exposed new length of the cable so I can redo the hot and neutral connections and have the ground wire longer than them. And that is very, very solid. So I am pleased. So I can start putting things back now that I have grounds that I can trust. I noticed there was some kind of funk between the chassis and the output jack. The jack over here for the tremolo on-off is much better, but this one was really dirty, and it's a really critical connection. So I've taken it apart and reclamped it because the jack itself was really loose. And cleaned all the surfaces with alcohol and deoxit, and about to put it back together. These are really terrible quality jacks that they used, but this one has held up, so you can resume service. I spoke to the owner about this amp, and he uses it at home. If this were something that was going to go on tour, first of all, I'd say don't take a 59 Vibrolux on tour. Play it at home in the studio and only build you a replica to go out live. But either way, for repeated road use, I'd replace this with a more modern heavy-duty Switchcraft RCA. Actually, I'd put in a 1/4 inch, just a little bit more solid connection than this. But cleaned and retightened, it will be good. All right, I'll be stopping here for a bit because I got to make supper. Got that diode in place for the bias. I've not done the adjustable bias yet. New bias cap, 63 volts instead of the stock 25. New bypass cap there, bypass cap down there where you can't really see it in the shadow. Straightened up that Jupiter. Touched up quite a few solder joints. 16 microfarad 475 volt F&Ts. They're soldered at the ground end and they're siliconed in place. I may replace the 470 ohm and the 22K that came with the amp. So I'm going to revisit that in a bit. Cleaned up and retightened the output jack. Cleaned the front panel and all the pots. Redid all the grounding that you already saw. I have not reconnected the hot and neutral on the power supply yet. That will come. But it's kind of nice not to have that there. So I can't power it on until I get the other stuff inside taken care of. And one of the next things to do is to go in here and try to retension all the tube socket pins because they're loose. They're loose, man.